It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the Box. LSU defeats Northern Illinois 10-2 on Thursday to run their record to 5-0 early here on the season. The Tiger Bats doubled their season home run total in that ball game with 5, so they now stand at 10, and 5 LSU pitchers combined to allow 2 runs, only one of them earned, and strike out 16. It was a dominant performance, really from start to finish for LSU. Just what you would expect against an inferior opponent. They will turn their attention to Stony Brook now on Friday. So what we will do here, we will go back through the game against Northern Illinois, because even though it was an 8-run victory for LSU and the outcome was not really in doubt for a large majority of the ball game, there was a lot that I saw that I want to talk about in the lineup. Obviously the power surge, but some guys that we highlighted in the preview that we wanted to see kind of if they could start to get right early in the season this weekend. Now started to do that, so we definitely want to touch on that. Gage Jump obviously made his starting debut. Have plenty of thoughts on that. He's just going to be such a big part of this season for LSU that, I mean, anytime he's on the mound, we're going to take an in-depth look at what he does, because it warrants it. And then there were a couple, I mean, obviously every bullpen performance was awesome, but there were 2 in particular that I really, really want to touch on, and so we're going to do that as well. And then we'll give you a little brief thumbnail preview on Stony Brook, and send you on your way as LSU will face them on Friday. I said 5 LSU pitchers. Pardon me, 4 LSU pitchers: Jump, Ackenhouse, and Moffitt, and Micah Bucknam. So we're going to dive right into that here momentarily. But first, I'll remind you, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the bell. Like the video. Smash that like button and share it out. Really helps. All of those things are good for the channel. Get subscribed to the podcast in the audio format as well on any podcast app. Wherever you get your podcast, Musso at the Box is there. So just search it and get subscribed up. You can follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew. Love interacting with everybody there during the games and during the week, just in general. Not even in baseball season, just in general. And Facebook as well, Matt Musso. You can do that as well. And look, the Instagram scrolling there on the bottom. Go ahead and drop a follow there if you want as well. All right, let's dive into it. So obviously, like I said, the main story I think that everybody really wanted to see coming into the game on Thursday against Northern Illinois was Gage Jump getting the start. When we previewed it, we talked about it. He was going to go 45 to 50 pitches. He ends up throwing 52, which is very good. Gets you 2 1/3, so pitched into that 3rd inning. Everything they wanted him to do, it went right according to plan. Pitch count, inning count. He went through the lineup, a full trip. Everything they wanted was great. When you look at Gage Jump, he threw 11 pitches on opening day, obviously. And again, if you're not familiar, his freshman year at UCLA in 2022 went down with a UCL, had Tommy John surgery, so missed all of 2023, transfers into LSU, and now is making his return. This is his second outing. 11 pitches on opening day in a closing roll out of the bullpen, 52 today. That's a pretty substantial jump. So when you're looking, no pun intended, when you're looking for extension out of him, there's a few things you're going to look at. Obviously, fatigue, one of them, but I didn't really see anything there. I mean, he looked good. He looked strong. The velocity held throughout as well. I mean, you saw him in that 9th inning against VMI, 94, 96. Was that just max effort? The answer is no. I mean, he was pretty steady, 95, 96 still, and even into the 50 pitch range, holding that velocity against Northern Illinois. So all of that, great. Like from a stuff standpoint, from a strength and fatigue standpoint, everything looked great, I thought, with Gage Jump there. If you get into the outing a little bit, man, I thought his first inning was just incredibly frustrating. It had to be for him, had to be for the team, because when you go back and you look at it, you see that he threw 28 pitches. There was a walk in there. There was a wild pitch that allowed an unearned run to score. He pitched so much better than what his first inning line, what the book would say on him in the first inning. So, look, the leadoff guy steps in. He strikes him out swinging in a 2-2 count. That was great. Then he gives up the walk. but it was a close check swing call. I thought the umpire got it right. I don't think Kosabuki went around, or Kosabuki, however you really want to say it. I don't think he went around, so I think it was the right call. But it was a close check swing. Like, Jump executed a great pitch on 3-2 on a breaking ball, in a fastball count, just what you want to see. And the guy checked his swing up, and it was close. Where it gets, that kind of starts the frustration. Where it got further frustrating for him, Colin Summerhill, who we highlighted extensively in the preview because he is the guy you circle in that lineup that you can't let beat you. Jump gets him to ground into what should have been an inning double play. And you had a throwing error from Braswell after, on the back end of that double play, and it allowed Summerhill to advance to second base. And that's disappointing because Michael Braswell is looked at as an elite glove at shortstop, and I think that he is. He has to make that throw. The feed from Josh Pearson, it was a little wide, but it wasn't wide enough that it really should have thrown off that play. Braswell just has to make the throw, and he didn't, and that should have gotten Jump out of the inning, and it didn't. And ultimately that would come back to haunt. So it's a throwing error because it allows Summerhill to advance. Of course, you can't assume the double play, but it allows Summerhill to advance to second base. And then you have Eric Arato, who we talked about plenty on the preview episode, as well as he's their action guy, right? I mean, program record in walks, single season that is, in 2023, led the team in steals with 25. Like, he is the action guy, and he reached base on a swinging bunt in a 1-2 count. Jump executes a great pitch, and it's a swinging bunt, and the guy beats it out. So you have runners at first and third because Summerhill advances. Then you have a wild pitch where Jump spikes a breaking ball, and that allows a run to score. But ultimately, he gets out of the inning with a strikeout, again, in a full count. So, I mean, it spiraled on him a little bit, but he pitched way better. I mean, you go back, you look at it. There's a walk on a close check swing, an inning double play that wasn't because it was botched and it should have got you out of the inning. You have a swinging bunt that allows a runner to reach, and then a wild pitch that ultimately chases the run home. It was a gift-wrapped run, but it still didn't come easy for Northern Illinois, and I think that's a great compliment to Gage Jump ultimately. Some things I liked overall in his outing. Obviously, after that, man, he really bounced back great in the second inning, 3 up, 3 down. 4 strikeouts in the 2 and the third. That's fantastic. What I really liked about that is 2 of them came on the fastball, 2 of them came on his breaking ball. So they were mixing the pitches well. I mean, that's ultimately, again, and that's what's going to allow him to get through a lineup more than once as a starting pitcher. That's what's going to allow him to ring up a strikeout total in a game. If he's able to have 2 put-away pitches and keep a hitter off balance in 2 strike counts like that, that's huge. So that's something I did take note of with Jump there. And again, the 52 pitches, of those 52, 30 of them were strikes. You'll want to see that number obviously improve, and it will. Let's keep in mind here, this is a guy that didn't pitch at all last year. He's really trying to work back. The command will come. That will come. That's why you're having this ramp up, and eventually he will get there. I really don't have a doubt there. I mean, what's great to see from him, what's great to see from him so far is even with those, I'll say, the inconsistent command early in his return, he's still getting out of the count. I mean, he's now thrown 3 and a third innings on the year, has Jump. He's walked just 1, and I mean, let's see, he struck out 6. So that's very encouraging from him, even with some slight command issues. So all in all, man, I thought Gage Jump was awesome in his first start, and here was Jay Johnson after the game talking about his lefty.
Yeah, I thought he was good. It's good to get him out there and got up and down twice, which was big, and really pleased about that. And has a great season ahead of him for us. There's not very many better pitchers in the country, in my opinion, and can't wait to get that pitch count up and get him rolling as we're getting into SEC play.
There you go, right at the end. That's the big thing, right? I mean, y'all, we've talked about it here plenty. Gage Jump's going to be in this rotation, and I've told you they're going to target SEC play to do it. It's just like they did with Thatcher Hurd last year, and Jay Johnson, he just told you that at the end of that cut. I mean, he told you we're going to get him rolling, hopefully have him ready for, I don't remember his exact words. I'm paraphrasing. Get him ready, have him, continue to increase the ramp up and have him hopefully rolling for SEC play. Gage Jump, he's just that type of talent. He has to be in the starting rotation for LSU, and at some point this year, he will be. I'll be curious to see how they handle him next week when they're in Houston for the Astros Foundation Classic. In the bottom of the second inning, that's when LSU was able to take the lead, and they really got the bats going, man. Their first 4 spot of 2 in this ball game, and the inning didn't start great. Jared Jones struck out on 3 straight breaking balls and looked pretty bad. It was his worst at bat of the season. More on him momentarily. But right after that, Josh Pearson in the lineup on Thursday after sitting out the previous game draws a walk, a great AB from Josh Pearson. I mean, we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pitch at bat, and he draws a walk. But Ethan Fry would foul out, so you're looking for a 2-out rally, and you would get it. Michael Braswell, who we've talked plenty about, looking to get the bat going early in the season, gets himself into a 3-1 count and unloads on a fastball, hits it out to left center field, over 402 feet, I believe it was. It's a 2-run homer, his first at LSU, his first of the season, and immediately puts LSU in the lead. Alex Milazzo would then draw a walk off a starter, Tommy Meyer, on 4 pitches. Paxton Kling would come up to the plate. Again, another guy trying to get the bat going early in the season here. Gets down 0-2, fights off a pitch, and then gets a hanging breaking ball, probably about stomach high, and just, uncoils on this baseball. A no-doubter off the scoreboard, pretty high off the scoreboard as well for Paxton Kling, and that's LSU's second 2-run homer of the inning. It puts them up 4-1, and eventually Jake Brown would double in the inning, and then Tommy White would ground out, and that would get Northern Illinois out of the second, but again down 4-1. LSU would add another run in the third, in the 4th inning, after Northern Illinois homered in the top half to cut it to 5-2. LSU would put up their second 4 spot of the ball game. Paxton Kling would be hit by a pitch to lead it off. After a Jake Brown flyout, Tommy White hit probably the most impressive home run of the day, and Josh Pearson had a couple that were pretty darn impressive that we're going to get to. But this one for Tommy White, y'all, he's heading the count 1-0, gets what looked like, I couldn't really tell if it was a fastball or just a really flat breaking ball that was up in the zone. It didn't matter because Tommy White turned on this baseball and hit a 418-foot homer straight down the left field line. The left fielder did not move. He just stood there, turned around, and just watched it fly over everything in left field. The definition of a no-doubter for Tommy White. That put LSU up 7-2. And then Josh Pearson, after Jared Jones was hit by a pitch, Josh Pearson homers to right field, 380 feet. That was LSU's 4th 2-run homer of the day. Pearson's first, again, trying to get back going early in the season, and LSU's up 9-2, and the game's really not in doubt at that point. In the 7th inning, Josh Pearson would hit another home run, 421 feet off the batter's eye to dead center field to give LSU its margin of victory, 10-2. You had some great bullpen work in there as well that I want to talk about, but that's kind of your game-by-game breakdown there. LSU just with an onslaught. I was sitting there. I know the wind was blowing out. It's the second game that the wind has been blowing out. It blew out on opening day. LSU had 2 home runs in that game. It's blowing out pretty briskly on Thursday, and LSU at 5. Again, as we said off the top of the show, doubled their home run total on the season, so they now sit at 10. And they've hit a home run in every single game to this point, which is fantastic. It's what this team's going to do. Like, will they have a little bit more action on the base paths? Yeah, probably. You got a little bit more speed in the lineup with Paxton Kling in there every day, or at least he will be eventually. And, a Mac Bingham, who we think is going to be in there pretty much every day. So you do have that going for you, but, y'all, they're going to mash homers. Like, they just are. We've talked about it a lot, and, you saw Pearson hit 2. Tommy White, you know what he's got. Hayden Travinsky, there's plenty of power in that bat. Jared Jones has already hit, I believe, 3. Right, on this season. Let me check that real quick so I know Jones has already hit 3. So you've got plenty of pop throughout that lineup, and you're going to start to see that, especially if that wind continues to blow out. A little bit on the bullpen, as I wanted to talk about that as well. Nate Ackenhausen was first out of the bullpen. He was awesome yet again. 3 2/3 for Nasty Nate. Struck out 6. That's 2 different outings this year now, and he struck out 6. The one thing I will say about, he did give up the home run, but yeah, look, we're not gonna get all bent out of shape. It was, again, the wind was blowing out. It looked, the home run looked fairly wind aided. Pearson in left, he just kind of kept going back. Looked like he had a track on it, kept going back, and ultimately he ran out of real estate, and it landed in the bleachers. So it went a couple rows up in the left field seats. It's unfortunate. I mean, we go back and look when it was an 0-2 count, so that's why it's unfortunate. He kind of just hung a breaking ball, but it was honestly the worst one that he threw all day. The breaking ball was fantastic from Nate, and that's the one thing that really stood out to me there. He was throwing it 4 strikes and then being able to put it in the dirt and get a chase, and then right below the zone and get a chase. So the breaking ball was a huge difference for Ackenhausen in his outing. He was awesome. The one thing I will say, though, outside of that, home run and giving it up on an 0-2 count, which kind of stinks, the bounce back from that, epic. He struck out the next 2 hitters on 6 pitches. I mean, just dominant stuff. Shows you how locked in he was early when he came into the game. A little bit later in that outing, the zone started to jump around on him a little bit. He did end up walking 3. In his last 2 innings of work, Ack had to pitch out of self-created jams, and he did both times, which is great. The walk total does need to come down for him a little bit, though. That's now 5 in 6 2/3, and that is too many. I'm not overly concerned about walks for LSU as a staff. We talked about that in the recap of opening weekend and kind of dove deep into the numbers, and we can do that with Ackenhausen too, I'm sure. But just in the immediate reaction, I'm going to look at that and say, okay, you need to get that down, because you've also struck out 12 in that 6 2/3, which is great. In 2 appearances. And I will say this, LSU is clearly using Nate Ackenhausen like they used Riley Cooper, and that last season, and that is going to be their plan. Like, I fully 100% expect if Nate Ackenhausen stays healthy, he will lead this team in appearances, and he will throw a bunch of innings. Last year, Riley Cooper, 32 appearances, by far led the team, 61 2/3 innings from Riley Cooper. They're going to want Nate Ackenhausen to be that type of guy. I don't know if he's going to have the rubber arm that Riley Cooper had. My guess is no. We'll see how they move that forward in the season, but you're going to see a lot of Nate Ackenhausen because he can go short stints and he can extend, like you've seen him do in his first 2 outings so far in the season. So expect a lot of innings and a lot of appearances for Nate Ackenhausen, kind of in that Riley Cooper mode. I thought he was really, really good. We'll work on that walk total, and I think eventually he will get it down because, look, last year in 30 2/3, he walked 14. Like, Nate's a guy who's going to pound the zone, and he's just taking a little bit to get there this season, but ultimately he will. The other 2 guys who came out of the bullpen that I definitely want to touch on are Aiden Moffitt and Micah Bucknam. Let's start with Aiden Moffitt, y'all, because I'm slowly becoming optimistic with Aiden Moffitt this year. That's a right-handed arm that could end up emerging late for LSU. And I'll tell you why I'm encouraged. And it's not rocket science. He's just around the plate a hell of a lot more right now. I mean, do y'all remember Aiden Moffitt's season in 2023? I'm sure most of you are probably saying no, and there's a good reason for that. He only made 1 appearance, and I'm not trying to crack on Nate why do I keep trying to call him Nate Ackenhausen? I'm not trying to crack on Aiden Moffitt. It was a rather forgettable appearance because it was really bad. And again, I'm not saying that to rag on the kid because this is part of the point that I want to make. Aiden Moffitt in 2023 made 1 appearance for LSU. It was on March 3rd against Butler. He came into a 12-0 game with 2 outs in the 8th inning. He faced 4 batters. He walked 3 of them, hit the other. There was a wild pitch involved in there. He was up to 98-99. He just had no clue where it was going. He couldn't get anywhere close to the plate. he didn't record an out. And his ERA ended up at 99, and he carried that for the entire season. Aiden Moffat's the guy that you watch and you see the stuff, again, where the fastball can get up to 98 and 99. The kid can throw 100. He's a big body guy, a stock righty, that you see. If you're going to build out the stock righty, he looks like Aiden Moffat. The slider can be filthy. He's got everything you want from a stuff standpoint. He just couldn't throw strikes. Then when I saw him in the fall, when I saw him in the winter, it's like, okay, he's still kind of wild. He's still around there. He's not having clean innings. He's not putting up zeros. In one outing I saw him in the winter, he went out there twice. They had to call both innings. He couldn't get out of him. I'm like, wait, that's not a guy that I can really count on. What I've seen from him in the first 2 appearances so far here in 2024, he absolutely looks like a guy you're going to eventually be able to count on. 2 appearances, 2 innings, only 1 walk, 3 punch-outs. He hadn't given up a run. He hadn't given up a hit. I understand what the competition is. I get it. That's one reason I referenced when he came into that Butler game in 2023. It was 12-0. Butler stunk, y'all. It was 12-0 with 2 outs in the 8th. It didn't matter. That's where you see the improvement. I'm not telling you, Nate, I did it again. I'm not telling you Aiden Moffat is ready to go get outs against Florida. That's not what I'm saying. For me, he's very much going to continue to come into games like he has, where they're out of hand or it's a midweek opponent until they really get comfortable. But, y'all, he's around the strike zone more. It was his 3rd batter I think he faced on Thursday against Northern Illinois. He dropped in the best slider I've ever seen him throw for a strike. It was fantastic. He mixed his pitches well. It's encouraging. It's a major step in the right direction for Aiden Moffat because it's similar situations to his first appearance last season and his only appearance last season, and it's just marked improvement. So I'm fired up for him going forward. And then Micah Bucknam, I want to talk about him too because, y'all, this just illustrates the depth of LSU's pitching staff. LSU used 18 pitchers on opening weekend, and you didn't see Micah Bucknam. 18 pitchers, and they had a guy left that you didn't see. And when you saw him against Northern Illinois on Thursday, he was awesome. That's a guy who can bring it in the low to mid-90s, but what stood out most about him, I mean, look, he was dotting everything. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm looking at Micah Bucknam. He threw 31 pitches. 21 of them were strikes. I mean, it's 2/3 of his pitches crossed the wide of the plate, but he had control of everything. The slider was filthy for strikes. He was able to move it out of the zone as well. And then the fastball, he was able to dot that. He threw 2 shutout, faced 7 batters, recorded 6 outs, 4 of them via the strikeout, didn't walk anybody. He was awesome. Again, I'm not sitting here telling you that Micah Bucknam's going to end up being this great ace weapon for you in the bullpen on the weekend, but man, that's about as encouraging of an outing as you can get from a guy who was used in only mop-up duty last year and ended up with an ERA of 11.57. You know what I remember from Micah Bucknam last year? I remember him being one of the guys that they just completely threw to the wolves against South Carolina in that opening game when, I mean, they were getting shelled. Like that's what I remember. The guy you saw pitch Thursday didn't look like a guy that was going to be, used potentially in that type of role. Maybe still along the lines of an Aiden Moffat here with Micah Bucknam, where he works his way through the midweek right now, and then maybe late in the season can emerge for you down the stretch. But he looked awesome in his season debut. When you saw a lot of guys in their first outing this year look a little amped up or whatnot, Micah Bucknam was cool as a cucumber, spotted everything, and was just completely dominant, and again, encouraging sign going forward. It's one outing, long way to go, but that's an encouraging sign going forward. A couple more notes offensively. So one of the things we talked about in our preview of this weekend was some guys that, we're off to slow starts. Could they use this as kind of a get-right opportunity? And those guys are, they're off to a great start. They were Paxton Kling, Josh Pearson, and Michael Braswell. So between those 3 guys, they hit 4 home runs and drove in, 8 of LSU's 10 runs. Pretty darn good. Kling went 1 for 2, scored twice, reached base 3 times. The average got up to 231. That's solid. Josh Pearson, 2 for 3. The 2 homers, drove in 3, scored 3 times, and also walked once. His average rose to 286. You look at Michael Braswell, the average only got back up to 188. That's fine. 1 for 2, reached base a second time on a walk, had a sacrifice fly, scored a run. They each impacted the ball game and did it throughout the lineup, with Kling hitting leadoff, Pearson hitting 6th, and then Braswell hitting 8th. So top, middle, bottom. That was a great step in the right direction for those guys. Now, can they continue that over the course of these next 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and and throughout the season, because they're going to get at bats. I don't know if Pearson's going to be in the lineup Friday against Stony Brook. You might go back to Stephen Milam there, or maybe you put him in the outfield and have Milam second base. I don't know what Jay's going to do there, but Pearson's going to continue to get at bats. I don't know how you keep him out of the lineup after he's going to be rewarded for the day that he had. So that was something very, very encouraging to see. All right, let's get you a brief little thumbnail here on the Friday game. LSU will face Stony Brook. As we said, Tigers carrying that in 5-0. Stony Brook will play a game early Friday morning against Northwestern State, so LSU will be the back end of a doubleheader for them. We went deep dive on them in a previous episode. You can find it on the YouTube channel or obviously in the podcast feed as well if you really want to hear deep dive on Stony Brook. So looking at them, I think it's going to be one of 2 guys for Stony Brook on the mound. It could be Eddie Smeek, who's the front of the line rotation guy, if they decide to hold him to face LSU instead of having him throw that early game against Northwestern. You could see him. He emerged really as a freshman last year for them in the rotation. It was a rough first outing for him, 5 innings. His ERA is 5.4. He gave up 3 earned runs in those 5 innings, only struck out 3. You could see him there. If it's not him, I would imagine it's going to be a grad transfer righty, Ty Saunders, who we went deep dive on. He transferred in from Portland, only appeared in 6 games last season as a pitcher for the Pilots. And that was his only season that he pitched in college was last year, yet Stony Brook seems to have him PO, man, pitcher only. So it was a really rough 6 outings for him for Portland, had an ERA of 11.5 in those, and is off to a rough start here as well. Got touched up pretty good. Gave up 3 earned in 5 2/3, 4 total. So an ERA just south of 5 for him. But both righties, both of them are going to be in the zone for the most part. Which is, a great thing. So you can be aggressive. For LSU, I just want to see you continue the offense, man. You're going to have great weather this entire weekend. It should be conducive to offensive baseball. Keep hitting the ball. I'm not saying you have to go out there and hit 5 home runs every game, but LSU should very much be able to continue an offensive onslaught this weekend, which is going to be good, man, because you want to see them you want to see them take it out on the inferior teams. Like, they need to get that confidence up offensively, because they're still trying to figure out that lineup. They're not anywhere close to doing that yet. So that's encouraging, and I think they can continue that obviously throughout. You're probably going to end up with a few run rules this weekend when Stony Brook and Northern Illinois start to run low on pitching. For LSU, it'll be Thatcher Hurd. Obviously, we know that. Hurd's making his second appearance, second start. Went 2 2/3. ERA of 13.5. He did walk 1 and struck out 4 in his previous outing. You want to see a little bit more length out of Thatcher Hurd. I think they will have a longer leash with him here, just because he's not facing that potent of a lineup in Stony Brook. They're hitting about 2. Let's see, I have it here. 219 as a club heading into the game on Friday. Not going to hit the cover off the ball. I loved the he was around the zone, kept the walk total low, keep that going for Hurd. But you really want to see a great bounce back for Thatcher Hurd on Friday against Stony Brook, and I think it sets up well for him. So if he does what he did against VMI, I think you'll see a much longer and much more productive outing for Thatcher Hurd. So look, that's what I want to see. I want to see the walk number continue to drop for LSU. They only walked 5 against Northern Illinois on Thursday. That was great. So I want to see that continue to drop. And as we said, those guys who are trying to get the bat going early, like a Paxton Kling, I'm completely blanking. Josh Pearson and Michael Braswell, they had good days against Northern Illinois. Can they keep that rolling on here throughout? So there you go. That's kind of your little thumbnail. Again, if you want the real full deep dive preview on Stony Brook, check out a previous episode there on the YouTube channel or in the podcast feed. Get subscribed up to that YouTube channel. Hit the like, smash the like, I should say. Share, like and share. That's always appreciated on YouTube. It's always appreciated on just on the podcast app as well. Follow me on Twitter at Musso Matthew and Facebook Matt Musso, and be here next time. We're gonna recap the rest of the weekend on the next edition of Musso at the Box.